hold it. Hold it. Code Pink, radicals, communists, socialists, revolutionaries, and Islamists will work together. Code Pink. They participated in the anti-Israel Gaza flotilla. Here they are supporting Egypt. Oh, there they are. Look at that. Solid. Down with Mubarak. That's weird. And here they are, huge supporters of Occupy Wall Street. Here they are with Van Jones at Occupy LA. That's Code Pink there. So other 60s radicals are joining the movement now. You got Code Pink. You have the 60s radicals. You have unions and organized not by the students. But you also have Bill Ayers. Bill Ayers just held a teach-in with the protesters in Chicago last weekend. Teacher. He compared Occupy Wall Street to the civil rights movement. Yeah. Martin Luther King would have been so proud. He said, quote, "You created power where there was none." That's weird because that's what Stephen Lerner talked about when he said we have to create power. He warned the protesters not to get co-opted by the Democratic Party. It's a little late for that. He stressed the importance of maintaining their independence, stating, quote, "Martin Luther King didn't go begging for a meeting with Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson begged for a meeting with Martin Luther King." So let's review here what we've seen so far. Prior organization from SEIU, from radicals, Stephen Lerner, Lisa Fithian, she's sweet, and an offer to pay protesters from the Working Families Party. After the fact, AFL-CIO jumps on board. Radical, anti-war, anti-capitalist communists, and Code Pink also on board. Again, especially from those in the media, you know, if you see another explanation, because I'd love to hear it. We could sit down at this table and we could have an honest discussion of what we've presented from the players involved. And frankly, this is just the beginning. Back in a minute. It only goes downhill from here. Okay, read an article last week that expressed shock that billionaire George Soros would support this anti-capitalist, anti-bank movement. This is a great question, it actually is. Because people say, well, why he makes money. They couldn't believe that a guy who made $7.8 billion last year alone would support such a movement. Watch.
They've won some unlikely supporters, including the billionaire investor George Soros.
Actually, I can understand their sentiments, frankly, because a lot of people, for instance, running small businesses, who saw their credit card charges being raised from 8% to 28%.
Yes.
And since they were relying on that credit to run their businesses, a lot of them actually were put out of business. And at the same time, the decision not to inject capital into the banks, but to effectively relieve them of their bad assets, and then allow them to earn their way out of a hole, gave the banks.
Okay, I can't take any more. You get it. Spooky dude is here. And first of all, let me just show you. RT, what's that? Russia Today. That's like our Voice of America when we were trying to collapse the Soviet Union. Russia Today. Here he is. I am sympathizing with their grievances. George Soros. The man who has profited from helping 5 currencies collapse. 5. George Soros, the man who's called an economic terrorist by Malaysia, and the man who made $8 billion in this economy last year. He collapsed 5 economies and became one of the richest men in the world by doing so. You really believe he's an unlikely supporter? Let me help you with this. Do you remember on April 8th through April 11th last year? Very few people reported on this or paid attention to it, really. He's the guy who orchestrated and held Bretton Woods 3. What is that? Well, Bretton Woods 1 and 2 were about the gold standard and America controlling the world's money supply. Okay. Bretton Woods 3 is the restructuring of the global community. You see, he's developed the replacement for it when this destructs. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hang on. I think I might be onto something. He's planned the replacement for when this destructs. He's supporting this movement. Oh, there's much more on him in a second. But this brings back to mind. Do you remember what Fithian said? You know, the Abby Hoffman chick. I guess my biggest thing is that people who are trying to create a new world have to dismantle or transform the old order to do that. Huh. So if you were trying to create a new world, like if you had Bretton Woods 3, it would be in your interest to set up the new world and then dismantle or transform the other one. I'm sure there's another explanation for this. By the way, if he's not directly funding this, George Soros is absolutely involved. Big money, George Soros. Absolutely. Absolutely. He's certainly indirectly financing it. Let's go with Jim Wallace. Now, this is one of President Obama's spiritual advisors. In fact, I believe this is the replacement advisor for Jeremiah Wright. What a surprise, another admitted Marxist. Absolutely and totally. The head of Sojourners, which Sojourners is a recipient of major accounts of cash from George Soros, most recently in the form of a $150,000 donation. Huh. So wait a minute, George Soros is involved, yes, and those around the president are involved. Spiritual advisor from the president. He went down to Occupy Wall Street to interview people about how they got involved. Watch.
So I got involved after Adbusters put out a call to Occupy on September 17th. I heeded the call by attending this General Assembly, which was called by Citizens Against Budget Cuts on August 2nd.
Okay, wait a minute. I just have this right. Adbusters contacted him. We should look into Adbusters, huh? Oh, we have. Adbusters is a radical anti-consumers publication that is supported by the Tide Center, which receives $3.5 million just in 07 to 09 from George Soros' Open Society Institute. Here's Adbusters' latest communication to the faithful. It's now time to amp up the edgy theatrics, deviant pranks, subversive performances, and playful detournements of all kinds. Open your insurrectionary imagination. Anything from a bottom-up transformation of the global economy to changing the way we eat, the way we get around, the way we live, to love, communicate. Be that spark that sustains a global revolution of everyday life. By the way, the protesters, their publication, Occupy Wall Street Journal, supported by the Independent Media Center, which receives more than $70,000 from two parts of the Tides organization. This group donates millions of dollars to liberal causes, to put it kindly, and is partially funded by George Soros. Since 2000, Tides has received over $25 million from his Open Society foundations. Reuters only noticed the $3.5 million from 2007 to 2009, failed to mention the long history of funding and the other $20 million. Wallace spoke from Occupy Wall Street just last week. Watch.
The visceral feeling is this could really change things. The sign that I love was democracy is the only thing too big to fail.
Ah, that's great, Jim. Except democracy has never, ever succeeded. As our founders knew and warned repeatedly, democracy doesn't work. That's why they gave us a little thing called a republic. It's great to see like Marxists like Jim Wallace almost brought to tears with the thought of democracy, isn't it? And at the Soros-funded Center for American Progress. Wait a minute. Center for American Progress? Oh, that's going to open up a can of worms here. Because once we have the Center for American Progress, we have the Tides Foundation, those with people involved, George Soros involved. Center for American Progress. Wait a minute, that brings another one back to George Soros. And whoa. Center for American Progress, that brings everybody, including the Clintons, because John Podesta, remember the guy who was headed Barack Obama's transition team, John Podesta. He's part of Center for American Progress. This is from the New York Times. Quote, Judd Legum, a spokesman for the center, said, its direct contacts with the protests have been limited, but we've definitely been publicizing it and supporting it. Oh. And of course, the other Soros-funded group, MoveOn.org, is also supporting the occupiers, among other things, by holding a virtual march. I mean, how lazy do you have to be? I'm there for you, man. I just want to see your underpants. Come on. For over 2 weeks, the 99% protesters have occupied Wall Street in an unrelenting, nonviolent campaign against corporate takeover of our democracy. As thousands march to Wall Street in solidarity with the 99%, we are joining them in a nationwide virtual march of tens of thousands. I'm sorry. You could only get tens of thousands to say, yeah, I'm marching. Not really, but I'm marching. Whoa, slow down. Now, if you remember right, Fox took a beating for supposedly promoting the Tea Party. No. I did. They didn't like it. I didn't tell them a thing about 828. Do you think there's a reason why Fox was the only one that didn't cover 828? It's amazing how many people didn't notice that, but when you think back, you'll go, wait a minute, I didn't watch that on Fox, did I? No. That's weird, isn't it? Yet here's MSNBC's Dylan Ratigan at the Occupy Wall Street protest. Watch.
I love what you're doing. I believe that this can be turned into an action item for next year. But what I'm trying to start is a debate around the unholy alliance between business and state, and I'm trying to make a point, which is that we must harness this energy to affect positive change in 2012. And so my argument to you guys is that we have an opportunity to convert the energy that you've already harnessed into a channel of a flow of energy into next year where we can push collectively for a constitutional amendment to get the money out.
And I found people from all walks of life who agreed completely with that.
That is fantastic. Here's NBC's Al Sharpton. Watch.
It's time for us to occupy Wall Street, occupy Washington, occupy Alabama. We come to take our country back to the people.
Okay, no big deal. If this is what NBC wants to do, if this is what a network wants to do, I don't care. I really don't care. But please, please, stop. Fox promotes an agenda. Really? Please. What each decides, let's just not play these games anymore. I don't want to dwell on this, but let's take a quick look at the different reactions of the president to the Tea Party and then the president's reaction to Occupy. Now, he's the president of all people, right? Here is President Obama on Occupy.
I understand the frustrations that are being expressed in those protests. In some ways, they're not that different from some of the protests that we saw coming from the Tea Party.
Okay. All right. That was nice. That's nice. That's what a president should say. I understand. Not that different, he says. He understands the sentiment, but it's not that different than the Tea Party. But what did he say about the Tea Party?
So I've been a little amused over the last couple of days where people have been having these rallies about taxes. You would think they would be saying thank you. That's what you'd think.
They're very similar, Mr. President? Because your reaction was not similar. All right, covered a lot of ground. And again, if you're a skeptic, call me. Give me another explanation of what's behind this movement.